Hi. Hi. We've been talking this past day a lot about the importance of the public and private partnership. One of the times that it becomes increasingly important and time sensitive is when we're talking about fighting cybercrime. I'm really excited to introduce our two guests today who are going to talk a little bit about how they've been able to find success through collaboration. Jay, Aaron, can we start off by introducing yourselves? Aaron, let's start with you.
Hi, I'm Aaron Fricoli. I'm a senior member of Binance's investigations team. I've been at the company since early 2019.
Great. Jay.
Good morning, Jay Kramer. I'm the managing director of NCFTA. That's National Cyber Forensics and Training Alliance here in New York. It's a pleasure to be here.
Great. And NCFTA has sort of been the constant thread in this conversation, besides, of course, Chainalysis. So when you think about your mission and strategy, how do you work with the public and private sectors to be able to accomplish that?
That's a good, good question. So listening to Superintendent Harris talking about DFS and NYDFS is an acronym that not as many people need to know. NCFTA, again, National Cyber Forensics and Training Alliance, is a nonprofit organization. We were founded in 2002, so that's 20 years now. We're very proud of that. And in cyber years, that's 1,000 years, really, right? So it's interesting, and I think a moment on the history of NCFTA is insightful to the mission space today. 2001, just post 9/11, the FBI decided we need to establish a cyber division. There was no cyber division in the FBI prior. So in the early months of 2002, the FBI stands up not just a cyber division, but also an intelligence division to connect dots and try to avoid the types of attacks that were visited upon us then. Coincidentally, or not coincidentally, the effort and the conversation centered around how can we get better, how can we get smarter in this space? And the early thinking on it was, well, we'll invite private sector partners to share what they're learning about the cyber threat landscape into the FBI. And I say that as someone who served for more than 20 years at the FBI as a special agent, as a supervisor, also as an attorney. I was around during that time. And the decision was it would be too difficult to get private sector personnel into cleared space all the time. It would be awkward. Some don't want to come into FBI offices. The trust relationship wasn't there yet. So out of that sprang the nonprofit organization NCFTA as a neutral space where partners could contribute analysis, threat information and intelligence, and work hand in glove or shoulder to shoulder with investigators. That was the early origin. We've grown since then. NCFTA now has a cadre of over 60 analysts ourselves. We have about 200 organizational partners. So all the significant financial institutions, all the big pharma, many of the major US retailers, international retailers. So it's encouraging to see, having seen the cyber threat landscape through those lenses, law enforcement, as an attorney, in-house in pharma, to see the evolution of this space. And I know we're going to get to talk about it with Aaron as we proceed, but we have to keep evolving, and it's encouraging to see the atmosphere at NCFTA in Pittsburgh, in New York, and Los Angeles as a place where people can come and increase preparedness and also resilience.
Yeah. And speaking of evolving, you've been around for a long time, but you've obviously seen a lot of changes. Chainalysis is one of the first analytics companies to join NCFTA,
yes.
And Binance is the first crypto exchange to join. So Aaron, what has changed over the past year to encourage Binance to join NCFTA?
Yeah, so Binance has always taken user security and the security of the crypto space at large very seriously. And we've always sort of, been engaged in investigations work, both, sort of our own proactive research as well as, responding to investigations requests. But I think sometimes, we were reliant on individual personal connections in order to be able to reach out to law enforcement partners or things like that when we had questions or when we wanted to report an issue. And over the last year, Binance has really been aggressive about hiring former members of law enforcement and the public sector to come on board. We've had some joinees from like the IRS, U.S. Secret Service, Europol as well. And these guys mentioned that the NCFTA would be a really good avenue to sort of formalize and expand our working relationship with the public sector in the United States. And so we're really proud to be the first crypto exchange to join.
Okay. And how has having crypto companies join NCFTA, how has that changed your overall strategy, Jay?
That's a good question. So I mentioned our organizational partners, the 200 plus partners, working hand in hand or alongside our analysts. We also have on site multiple units from the FBI's cyber division, U.S. Secret Service, Aaron mentioned some of these, DHS, HSI, DEA, IRS. Locally here, the Manhattan DA's office has a very robust cyber program. And these are folks that are working real hard in their individual mission spaces, but also come together at NCFTA on site to share threat information and to decide what's the best use of our resources in this space. How can we make the most impact? So I mentioned the 20-year tenure or history of NCFTA. We can't rely on the way we did business 20 years ago, 10 years ago, even 5 years ago. The tactics, techniques, procedures, the TTPs of the bad actors continue to evolve, and we have to continue to evolve. So what does that mean for us? Greater analytics capability, greater forensics, subject matter experts on site. So that's the direction that we're taking at NCFTA, to expand the coalition of the willing, those that have significant capability to refine the picture of the threat landscape for our partners, for law enforcement. This is a symbiotic relationship, right? FBI and others, Secret Service, all of our partners. I didn't mention our international partners. There are multiple international law enforcement agencies that participate in New York here, NCA, National Crime Agency from the UK, RCMP from Canada. They get to benefit from getting early warning of the emerging threats, what's of the greatest concern to our partners, and they can open cases or enhance packages that focus on those threats. Our partners get to see the results in tradecraft born out of investigations. But I think that the highest level lesson that we've learned over 20 years is that you can't go it alone. Law enforcement does a great job in this space, but reporting is limited to FBI and others. There are still folks who want to keep things quiet to the greatest extent possible, not share vectors of intrusion, IOCs, TTPs, all those things. That space is getting better, but it's not perfect. On the private sector side, you're limited to perhaps your sector, other information sharing groups, ISACs. Those are great. Those are great opportunities to learn. And in the big, I have a partner at NCFTA who refers to the Venn diagram often, that everybody has a piece of it, and the goal is to try to get to the center where you're leveraging all the skills and abilities of people around you. And that's what we try very hard to do at NCFTA, and I think we do it as well as anyone.
Yeah, and I think something that would be really important for everyone in this room to hear is some of the success stories. And I know you have a couple of examples from this past year. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, too many to go into great detail on, but just last week in the U.S. Attorney's Office for the Eastern District here in New York, there was a press release on an individual charged that had been conducting significant securities fraud, computer intrusions, and that's particularly gratifying for me because I was the FBI supervisor of the squad that took the referral from NCFTA and one of NCFTA's financial partners several years ago. And there was tireless analysis done on the NCFTA side with our financial institution partners, more than one, because that tradecraft was being deployed across multiple institutions. And these are outside the United States bad actors, so that presents additional challenges. The FBI took the case and opened the case and worked hard to peel back the layers and understand the tradecraft at play and analyzed the manner in which the crimes were being perpetrated. And what was the result? Our financial institution partners at NCFTA were able to make some changes to avoid those kinds of intrusions. FBI has made arrests, and the case is still ongoing, so I can't go into greater detail on that, but a huge success. One other that I don't want to, I'd be remiss in not mentioning, in March, we all know how ransomware and encryption attacks have evolved over the past several years, how destructive those have been, what a great source of concern those are for, I imagine, all the institutions here and organizations. With so much media attention on ransomware, it's easy to forget how prevalent things like business email compromises are. Hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in losses, and particularly distasteful because in a lot of ways, these are self-inflicted wounds, right? I mean, you're being induced to voluntarily give away hundreds of thousands of dollars at a clip or millions of dollars at times. And to add to that frustration, there's often a feeling that there's not much we can do about this. The money's gone, there's no way to claw it back, we realized it too late, reported it too late. In March, the result of dozens of analysts at NCFTA partnering with the intelligence division at FBI and cyber division and multiple partner agencies in the US and overseas, I say we, the FBI was able to arrest 65 individuals and criminal organizations in Western Africa, in Europe, and through partnership even further with Japan's JC3 and federal police and Poland, additional arrests in the Far East. So I think it's a great example of how impactful coming together through a partnership can be, how reporting and learning, becoming more familiar with those that are operating in your space outside of your tower particularly, right? So that's the value and benefit of a public-private partnership like NCFTA. I mean, we all go to conferences, and some are better than others, not as good as links, right? But that's not enough in 2022. It's not enough to go and sit in the audience at a conference. You have to join the operators, those that are in the trenches, that are working hard to do the analytics, do the forensics, and are willing to share. And I think that's really the recipe for success in this space.
Yeah. And speaking of success, you've now been working with NCFTA for a while. Can you talk a little bit about your collaboration and where you've been able to find success at Binance?
Yeah, so just to start, I'd say, I think one of the biggest benefits has been just that open line of communication, the potential for collaboration and cooperation. Whether it be, I think sometimes, especially with in the private sector, there's a lot of suspicion maybe between private sector partners. They may not reach out and communicate with each other necessarily. So it's been really great through NCFTA to work with and speak with other private sector members of the organization and sort of be able to be a resource on cryptocurrency or to be able to answer specific questions about addresses or entities or things like that. It's been a really great opportunity. The other thing I would mention is I kind of mentioned both the proactive and responsive components. Both of those things NCFTA has really allowed us to sort of take to the next level. In terms of, I obviously can't get into too many details, but we had a request come through fairly recently that was a sort of urgent request from a federal law enforcement agency that they saw a large amount of stolen funds were entered our platform, and we were able to freeze the account and lock the funds and return them to the victim. And that was sort of a request that came through the channel we had through NCFTA, and we were able to handle it in a timely manner because of that. I would say one of the other really great things is in the run-up to and then during the war in Ukraine, NCFTA has really been a great resource. We've had a sort of a working group going that has allowed us to, all the members to sort of share things that we're seeing, to ask questions, to sort of work together to make sure that we're doing everything we can, not just to sort of, address the bare bones, obviously required sanctions concerns, but to sort of go above and beyond and be really proactive in our research and response to the situation there.
Great.
And if I can underscore something Erin just said, it's particularly helpful in this space for investigators in financial fraud investigative teams, cybersecurity components of organizations, to understand that they have really powerful tools at their disposal that Erin helps run at Binance, at Chainalysis, to make connections that may not be apparent initially through traditional investigative means. So I should say, all lawful and appropriate with legal process many times, most of the time when required, or through information sharing that's permissive through federal law and policy. Always lawful and appropriate, the sharing. There's no wink and a nod here in any way. But being able to directly connect and make a request regarding the blockchain or a wallet that you believe is associated with illegal activity, it's encouraging. I mentioned the BEC space, right? Often the frustration is that the money's gone and it's transited out of the initial hop before you can reach it. It's the same on the blockchain, and to be able to reach an investigator and a response team that can receive that request, evaluate the underlying facts that support why this is a fraudulent transaction or it was induced through fraud, to be able to freeze that and then follow up with process I'll say appropriate legal process, is huge for your organization. It's huge for your clients, if you represent clients in this space. And it's encouraging, and it's just one example of the evolution of tradecraft for the good guys in this space, right? Chainalysis as well. To learn more about the analytics behind the scene is encouraging for all of our partners. And we're looking to, at NCFTA, expand that footprint, bring in additional partners in this space to collaborate, and also bring in more of the forensics frontline folks. That's an initiative ongoing in the New York office, to bring operators that are in the DFIR space that are representing clients dozens a week in the trenches, to be able to share back with not only each other in the sector, but the broader cyber team, what's going on, what's trending up, what's on the decline, and where attention needs to be paid. So a lot more to come on that, but we welcome your participation too at any time. It's one team, one fight, for sure.
And it's clear that this partnership has been really beneficial. So what's next for working with crypto companies? And you talked a little bit about growing your partnerships. How do you intend to do that, and what's sort of next for NCFTA there?
So we host an annual conference in Pittsburgh in June, and present company will be included there, as well as many folks that are tuning in today. That's an opportunity to talk about initiatives and working groups in this space. So I mentioned in the New York office of NCFTA particularly, many of our partners are the large financials, and they're increasingly being tasked with taking custody of crypto for clients, whether it's retirement accounts or investment opportunities. And there's great concern about what are the best practices in this space to safeguard digital assets. So we had a meeting recently in our office where many of our law enforcement partners came in and said, and I've heard this refrain many times, and I've said these words myself too, well, as government, we can't really tell you what to do. We're happy to assist and help where we can. My response was, well, although you can't advise directly on what an organization should do, you can certainly tell them what not to do, right? The result of many investigations and things going sideways, and despite best effort and careful planning, encryption keys being lost and funds being misappropriated or stolen. So we're developing, again, a coalition of the willing in smaller groups in this space to tackle those issues specific to organizational needs. And I'll tell you, that's really the sweet spot, I think, for public-private partnerships, because in government, to stand up a task force or a new unit might take appropriations, it'll take absolutely headquarters approval, and then it'll get changed a number of ways along the line. Then there'll have to be a posting and staffed appropriately and applications filed. It could take 18 months to get an initiative underway. And that's too slow, really, for the speed of cyber. And that's not to be critical, unnecessarily critical, it's just the way it is. So in a space like this, all we need at NCFTA is a few partner organizations, let's say financials in this case, to say, yeah, that's a problem we're seeing too. We'd love to participate. I'll assign so-and-so. So we'll put together those people, and either we'll assign an analyst directly, or we'll hire a new analyst. If this is an important enough need or initiative for our partners, the only reason we exist is to service our partners, to make sure that they're prepared and resilient. So that flexibility and to be able to stand up an initiative in a matter of weeks, sometimes even days, is exciting, really.
Great. And the last question, I think everyone in this audience cares deeply about growing consumer access to cryptocurrency safely. What are some of the tips that you have around collaboration across the two sectors? So, Erin, let's start with you. What do you hope to see more out of from the public sector?
So I think for us, I'll start with the trite sort of thing, like please reach out. Like we really want, we don't want Binance to be a black box. We want to, encourage, cooperation and collaboration, contact. We're always happy to answer questions, et cetera, et cetera. I would say, working with the NCFTA has been such sort of an eye-opener about the possibilities of, what we can accomplish, given the right sort of space, the right forum. So I would say, more opportunities like that, maybe more, more organizations like the NCFTA, or sort of a way that we can, really make sure that, we're able to reach everyone we want to reach. In crypto, there's something new every day. Every day I see something that I haven't seen before. I have a question about something that, I've never seen before. And it's always great to be able to reach out and make use of the resources you have, and maybe even resources you didn't know you have.
Great.
And I'll add to that the teams are growing. Erin's team is expanding significantly and has been super responsive to law enforcement process requests and have prioritized those, which is encouraging. And it's all about the trust relationships here. That's what the success of NCFTA has been based on over the years. And I'm not going to pretend that that's easy. It's difficult. Organizationally, when you have a CISO or a board to report to, there's a lot of aversion to risk. And it takes a long time to build those trust relationships among partners where they can feel comfortable enough to say, you know what, this is a real organizational concern. We're having an issue with X or Y or Z. We have that here. It's very hard to build. It's very easy to disrupt. So I think our partners at NCFTA are very mindful to handle information, sensitive information, appropriately. And I think that's the strength. So there are many that are asking to join in this space, and that's encouraging because we need the additional subject matter experts in this space to contribute to the mission. So we think about our growth strategically and carefully at NCFTA, as do all of our law enforcement partners, and we welcome input from you guys if you are not already members at NCFTA. I may have mentioned, or I should have if I didn't, we're a 501c3 nonprofit organization. It's a very flat organization. We have 60 plus analysts, and really just 3 of us that help lead the effort. So yes, there are membership dollars involved, but those go directly into the hiring of analysts for the benefit of our partners. It's a very lean operation. And if we've often heard that it's the best spend in a cybersecurity budget, and that's high praise for us. So if developing those kind of relationships with those in your sector, with those in law enforcement, I left out academia, dozens of partners in academia that are contributing to training, that's all included. From the private sector perspective, working with all the top tier advisory firms, and they're great, they're all great, but they're expensive. I mean, every engagement is $50,000, $75,000, $100,000, a couple $100,000. It adds up, and if you don't make the budget for this year, you may have to wait till next year or ask for an enhancement, and those things are hard. in this space, this is for our own, by our own, helping each other and developing the kind of training and collaboration and sharing that's actionable. If it's not something that's actionable, it's something that we think very hard about whether we should be doing it at all.
Great. Thank you, Jay. Thank you, Aaron. Thank you to the audience. This is obviously a very important topic with lots of great work that's already been done, but lots more work to be done. I'm looking forward to seeing how this evolves. Thank you all so much.